Closer Look.
Online with Closer Look.
The Internet, social media, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, numerous others. Then there's Google and Yahoo. The wealth of information available online is countless. In fact, 91% of employers use social networking sites to screen job applicants. Therefore, we need to also realize online cybercrimes are on the rise. So how can we protect ourselves when it comes to using the Internet? Information about us is continuously being collected from us when we visit various websites. How can we control that? Can we control that? And what about when we get harassed online? Can that be prevented? In the late 90s, Jane Hitchcock found herself being harassed and had to take legal steps to finally rid the activity and clear her name. That led to her founding the organization WHOA, working to halt online abuse. What are the major issues we're facing today, Jane?
Oh, well, you have, the kids getting bullied online and offline. You have people who have been scammed by like the Nigerian scammers, and you have people who are basically stalked and harassed online. Half of our cases are people that the victim knows, either an ex or maybe somebody they work with or a neighbor, etc. But the other half are complete stranger-on-stranger cases because people go online these days and they get free email accounts, they create profiles, with fake information, and they think they're anonymous, and they tend to just attack people for either no reason or perceived misjustice. Or I call it internet road rage. It's like when you're driving down the highway and you see one car chase another, you're thinking, why? How could somebody get that mad to start chasing somebody down the highway? Well, the same thing happens on the information superhighway, where somebody is in maybe an online game, they're in a chat room, they're on Facebook and see something on somebody's wall, and it just makes them snap. And they start harassing somebody online, and if it's not nipped in the bud so that, it's taken care of really quickly, that's when it turns into cyber stalking, and that's where we come in.
You mentioned they think they're anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
What makes them not be anonymous?
Because everything can be traced back to what's called an IP address, which can be connected to the internet service provider it comes from, and depending on the situation, if it goes to law enforcement or lawyer, the ISP can be subpoenaed to find out who or what account belongs to that IP address, and it traces right back to them. So they can be found out.
So what's someone to do if they keep getting, stalked and harassed? I mean, just keep on writing back and saying, stop it, leave me alone?
I know it's a natural reaction to defend yourself, but the worst thing that they do is they start defending themselves, keep responding. Why are you doing this to me? Stop, why stop doing this to me? Stop posting my wall. And instead of reporting them, blocking them on Facebook, or just sending, and we advise them, send one reply saying, please stop communicating with me, and then do not respond after that, but keep everything. And then if they come to us for help, we can actually trace the emails to the originating ISP and contact the ISP, provide them with the proof, and hopefully get it taken care of before it becomes a situation where law enforcement or a lawyer needs to get involved.
Stephen Wyer was involved in a major federal lawsuit that wound up on the Internet, and he found himself a victim of having his credibility destroyed with a few clicks of the mouse. Wyer wrote the book Violated Online. Stephen, who really needs to be concerned about the possibility of being slandered online?
That's an interesting question, because from our perspective, everyone should be concerned. There are two ways to view online exposure. The first is that you've already been assaulted online in some way, or you've been exposed in some way. And the second perspective is that has not yet occurred. But while it has not yet occurred, you need to understand enough to proactively protect and defend yourself and be methodical when placing information online. So it's everyone. In our business, we talk with multimillionaires and celebrities and dog breeders and plumbers. We talk with 80-year-old people, and we talk with parents that are calling about 13-year-old children. It's all up and down the cross-section of America. I use as an analogy that we hear of others that have terminal illness, and we feel bad for them. But we don't process that it could happen to us until we get a report. And so we kind of talk about people, if they haven't yet been exposed online, the trend in where things are going would indicate that everybody is going to have some level of exposure.
Sure, and it's up to us what we expose.
Well, it is.
For the most part.
Yeah, I mean, there are what we call data aggregator sites.
And okay, explain that.
Data aggregator sites are basically pulling from all public sources, and they're aggregating a profile on you. A site that you can visit that does that is a site called Spokeo, Spokeo, Spokeo.com. And most of the time when I reference that site for folks and they bother to look for themselves, they're really taken back at the amount of information that's being provided. So you are in Spokeo, as an example, you do have the ability, if you go on and claim your identity, you do have a way of blocking that information.
Okay.
But if you're not aware of it, you would never know to do it.
And how do you know it's you and not somebody with your name?
Depending on where it's coming from, if it's coming from court records, then it's going to have first, middle, and last name. It's going to have middle initial. It's going to have professional designation, a doctor or a lawyer, something like that. And if it's you, you're going to recognize addresses and pictures.
Sure.
The Spokeo site will tell you where you live. It will tell you what political party you're in. It will tell you what your religious affiliation is. It will tell you what your contribution history is. You're going to recognize yourself as it's you.
Now, where do they get this information from other
Public
people?
records.
From public records?
Well, they're getting it from public records or information that you have volunteered. So as an example, if we look at Facebook asks for religious preference. If you put it on there and they scrape that information, then all of a sudden on a public site, you've got your religious affiliation, political parties. Think about the social sites that you and I know are very popular. Think about the amount of information that's requested. Mm-hmm. And whenever you're populating that information, they're aggregating it. And it's a pretty comprehensive snapshot. They tap into Zillow. They can tell you the price of your house. I can look up your property records and see what your property taxes are. I can get the names of your neighbors. There's an unbelievable amount of information that's online. And so that's the reason people tell me I don't do the Internet. And my response to that is you may not do the Internet, but the Internet does you.
Wow. That's something to keep in mind for sure. So, Jane, when we do use the Internet, we're realizing that information is being collected about us. So what can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, no matter where you have a profile, whether it's Facebook or if you're using Tumblr or another, Twitter or another social media
MySpace,
website. Yeah, if you, anything like that, always go through all of your account settings and your privacy options and make sure that you change them, because the default 9 times out of 10 is that they're automatically set so that anyone on that site can view your profile, view everything in there, but you have to actually go in and change it to only people on your friends list or only your followers or whatever, the term that they're using. And that's probably the biggest thing, is make sure you always check your privacy in your account settings and make changes appropriately. If somebody does bother you on some place like Facebook or Twitter, report them and block them. Especially with Facebook, it's hard to get that through to victims because they're afraid that Facebook is going to tell the harasser or stalker who reported them. They don't do that. They will look into it, and if it is indeed what they consider to be a harassment or stalking situation, they will cancel that person's profile. And the whole thing is, don't respond to wall posts, delete them. Report and block it. It's really hard to get it through to people that's your best thing is don't respond, except for what I say is the one, please stop communicating with me. And then after that, take screenshots, keep copies of emails, but don't respond further on it.
You're listening to Closer Look. I'm George Rath, and we're talking with Jane Hitchcock, the founder of WHOA, Working to Halt Online Abuse. Also, author Stephen Wyer, who's written the book Violated Online. Stephen, what else can we do to help protect ourselves online?
The very first thing, whether you've been assaulted, whether there's something out there or nothing's ever happened to you, the very first thing that you need to do is you need to be aware, and you need to be methodical. And the example I use all the time is you, I, and millions of other people sign up for various sites on an ongoing basis, and we get to the bottom, and there's that little box that says, I accept terms and conditions, and we click on it because we want to get to the user experience. There was a recent college study where they put up a faux site with terms and conditions, and they had 100% compliance with the terms and conditions. And the terms and conditions included surrendering your children, appearing naked in public. And there was this whole litany of absurd things that had been intentionally placed into the terms and conditions. But people don't read them. Google just implemented new privacy standards. No one has read them. Have you read them?
No, I haven't.
No. Yeah, and you're a media guy.
Yes.
So imagine, what John or Jane or Susie, what they're doing. And they're designed intentionally. If terms and conditions are 14 pages long, the probability that you're going to read and contest them is very low. Mm-hmm. But you have given up tremendous rights. And everybody does it freely. So you can't cry harm and foul when you're offering the information and complying with their terms and conditions. So certainly being aware is the first thing. Second thing is be brave. And by that I mean go out and actually look and see what's there about you. Many people contact us, and they're so afraid to look that they literally say, could you look for me? Because they're concerned. And sure, I'll look for you, but you need to look for you. And when you look for your search terms, you need to look for the various iterations of your name. First name, last name, first name, middle initial, last name, first name, middle name, last name. So you need to see what's out there, because a court document may have your full legal name and a slanderous blog may have your common name. So you need to be aware of what's out there. So be aware, be brave, and then be proactive. You can't always remove what's online about you, but many times you can, or you can alter it. And so if you're proactive in that, that's the beginning. The next step is own your identity. When we grew up, it was about real estate, and we were always told about real estate, it's location, location, location.
Right.
Online, it's identity, identity, identity. So the very first thing you need to do when you get off this phone call is you need to go to GoDaddy, and you need to type in your name. And if your name is available as a .com, .net, .org, you need to buy those. You need to control your real estate. You don't need to build a website. You don't need to host it. But you need to own your real estate. You need to do that for your wife. And you need to do that for your children. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I own her names. I have a 12-year-old daughter. I own her names. Because what I know is if you don't own your name, and I go on to GoDaddy for $10 and I buy the URL that represents your name, you have lost control of your identity online. And once I control that, if I set up a website, I can put any type of content on that site I want. And when somebody searches your name, my website's going to come up, and the content I've decided is appropriate for that website is what will be viewed.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, the word that comes to mind, the word I've heard a lot is cybercrime. And Jane, that's one of those crimes that are one of those words that sounds pretty ominous. But I guess the fact is that it's real and it's happening even now, right? Cybercrime.
Yes, it is. It's one of the things where it kind of bundles everything together, anything from identity theft to scams to bullying to harassment to just anything that's online related is kind of thrown into one big pot called cybercrime. We break ours down. The cases that we work on are mainly cyberstalking cases.
And so, Stephen, the way that a lot of people get information about us to be able to cyberstalk us is from online sites.
Search engines and social sites such as Facebook and Twitter, they give you a free service, and the cost of that service is information about you.
Wow, so free online sites aren't necessarily free.
If you're not paying for something, you are not the customer. You're the product being sold.
Jane, you have a lot of statistics on your website about cyberstalking. What would you say is the biggest surprise to you in those stats?
I would say that the fact that there are more female harassers than before. We're seeing that increase just about every year, and it's almost scary thinking that, and just thinking that anyone feels that they can get away with harassing or stalking anyone online, but to see it go from pretty much completely male when we first started calculating, now it's almost neck and neck, makes me wonder, first of all, what adults are doing with their time, when they could be putting it to some other good use, and then the fact that women can be just so nasty.
Yeah.
And because those tend to be, the male ones are more, I think it's about power, but the woman, they just get really nasty, is the best way to put it, without swearing. It just amazes me.
Wow, we've heard a lot of information warning us about who's taking information from us and what we can do about it, to be aware and that sort of thing. Stephen, do you have any something positive to end this program on?
What we do have is we have the ability to be the voice of a nation unlike any other time in history. We can make our opinions known, and we're seeing it this year in the elections, and we're seeing it on moral issues, and we're seeing it across the landscape in communities, small communities and big cities that are using social media for good. And it's very good. We just have to be aware of how we're using it.
Man, it feels like we have only scratched the surface of how to protect ourselves and be safe online, and what to do if we find ourselves in a situation of being harassed. Jane Hitchcock's website is haltabuse.org, and you can find out more about Stephen Wyer's book, Violated Online, by going to the website violatedonline.com. Thank you for listening. For a closer look, I'm George Rath.